Okay, so today we are starting our new chapter, that is overheads. Okay, and this chapter is very much important as part of your management accounting because as we have discussed in the previous classes that there are three types of elements of cost. Okay, first one is material, second one is labor, and third one is expenses. Okay, and in the expenses we will also going to study overheads. Okay, so there is a difference between expenses and overheads. So first we will have to understand what is expenses and what is overhead. After that, in overheads you will have to allocate overheads to the cost determination of a product or service. Okay, and the allocation of overhead is very much important. Okay, and there are several methods to allocate, so we will have to take care while allocating overhead to the cost of particular material. That is why this chapter is very much important. Okay, so now we are starting. Okay, so first we will talk about expenses. So what is expense? So if I talk about expense, so expense is part of like we can say that we are decreasing our liability and we are having any amount or disbursement of amount, that is known as expense. So it is also here written as decrease in economic benefits during the accounting period in the form of outflows, depletion of asset, or incurrence of liabilities. Okay, so decrease in economic benefit. Okay, so we are losing our asset. Okay, we are paying cash, we are paying bank amount, or we are increasing our liability if we are purchasing something on credit. Okay, and so it is written that in the form of outflows, depletion of asset. So we are paying amount, that is outflow. Depletion of asset, if asset is being depreciated, so depreciation is also known as expense. And or incurrence of liabilities. Okay, so incurrence of liabilities means if you are purchasing on credit, that means liability is being increased. Okay, so expenses result in either decrease in an asset or increase in liability. So we have understood both the things. Next is written as material and labor and cost are types of expenses. Okay, so you should understand that in expense, material is also an expense, labor is also an expense, and there are other expenses as well. Okay, but material is we study material separately and labor separately because these are big elements of cost. Other expenses are not material and labor costs, for example rent, okay, insurance, electricity, so on. Okay, so these all are togetherly known as expenses. Okay, so other expense refers to as an expense in this chapter. Okay, so cost has three elements: material, labor, and expenses. Expenses refer to like insurance, electricity, rent, depreciation. Okay, so water expenses, manufacturing expenses. Okay, so there are many types of expenses. Okay, now, these expenses are classified as follows. First one is related to building management. So rent, utility bills, telecommunication, taxes on property. Okay. And then production expenses, repair, maintenance, lease, selling expenses, advertising, customer service, delivery, finance and legal, interest, legal fee, external audit, insurance. Okay. So these expenses are classified into different categories. Okay, it is just for reading purpose. We are just reading that how to classify these expenses. Otherwise, for calculation purpose, these classification is not important for practical question mainly. Okay. Now, direct and indirect expenses. This is important. Okay. So, as we have discussed in material and labor, the same manner we are discussing direct and indirect. expenses. Okay, so direct expenses are directly attributable to a specific product or services, and indirect, which cannot be attributed to a specific product, which is a common expense. Okay, so if suppose you are manufacturing something like in a factory, and there are water expenses and electricity expenses for particularly for that factory only. So these are expenses which are directly attributable to the product, because in the factory we are manufacturing product only. We are not doing anything else. That is why these expenses are known as direct expenses, because they are directly related with the product. But suppose you are in an organization where common expenditures are there. So suppose in the organization advertisement is also there, office salary is there, and combined electricity. So combined electricity for the entire organization. So you cannot relate that electricity to a particular product. You cannot relate advertisement expenses to a particular product, because we are doing expenditures for all the products. Okay, so these are known as indirect expenses, because it cannot directly attributable to a specific product. Now all the indirect expenses are known as overhead. This thing is important. Here it is written that indirect expenses cannot be attributable to a specific product and are also known as overheads. Okay, so overhead means all indirect material, all indirect labors, and all indirect expenses. All are combinedly known as overheads. Okay, so now in the further thing, we will going to study overheads. Okay, so this is an example. So we will have to study that as well. So with that, you will get more clarity about direct and indirect expenses. So first one is cost of electricity needed to power equipment and machinery used in the production process for a single product. Okay, so it is written as this is for a single product. So for single product, if it is there, so it is direct. Next one is cost of cleaning and maintaining the factory. Okay. Now cleaning and maintaining the factory. If factory is used for manufacturing the product, then it is direct. Otherwise, this will known as indirect. So without information, we will call it direct expense, because in factory we are manufacturing products only. Then rent cost for the factory where production process are carried out. So obviously it is known as direct expenses. Next one is the warehouse manager's monthly salary. Okay, so warehouse manager do not involve in the manufacturing, so it will be known as indirect expense. Then higher cost for the machinery used in the production process to produce several different products. Higher cost for the machinery used in the production process to produce several different products. So there are several different products. So we cannot distribute our cost to a particular product, because it is for the entire product. So it is known as indirect. Insurance cost for the warehouse where several products are held, indirect. Cost for customer tooling needed to make a specific product. So it is a specific product, that is direct expense. Okay. So this is how we can easily segregate our expenses into direct and indirect expense. So please go through that, what I have told you. If you find anything complicated or confusing, please let me know. I'm giving you 1 minute to revise all these examples, because these are very much important. Any doubt? Okay. Then we are moving ahead. Now, next one is treatment of direct and indirect expenses. Direct expenses called this direct expenses are called this because they are directly related to production or a single product. They are therefore added to the direct material cost and labor cost. Okay, so direct expenses are directly added into direct material and labor, and all three direct expenses are commonly known as prime cost. Okay, prime cost of a product. So if direct material, direct labor and direct expenses are given, so we will add all the three expenses, and we will known as the total of all the three direct expenses are known as prime cost. Okay, after that, if I talk about indirect expenses, then it is not directly related with the production. So there is a separate, that is, there are various category of overheads. Like, obviously indirect expenses are known as overhead. So all are known as, there are different types of overheads: production overhead and non-production overhead, selling overheads. Okay, so these are known as overheads. So prime cost plus overheads, production overhead, non-production overhead, all are commonly known as total cost. Okay, so in the prime cost, if we add share of overheads, then it is known as total cost of a product. Suppose if we are manufacturing two types of products, suppose I have two kinds of bottles here. First one is that is a steel bottle, and second one is plastic bottle. Okay, so I'm manufacturing both the products. Now, rent, which is I'm paying for the entire building. Okay, in the first part, we are manufacturing in the, suppose there are two rooms. In the first room, I'm manufacturing this one bottle, and in the second one, I'm manufacturing this bottle. Okay, and I'm paying combined rent for the entire factory. Now, what I will do, I will check my rent amount. So if it is suppose 1000, so I will distribute this 1000 amount between the steel bottle and the plastic bottle. Okay, in both the product, I will distribute my rent. So that is known as share of overhead. So the share of overhead for this bottle will be added in that in the cost of this bottle, the steel bottle, and the share of overhead for the plastic bottle will be added to the prime cost of the plastic bottle, and that is how we will calculate total cost of a product. Okay, so this is how we calculate total cost. Now, problem is that I'm manufacturing both the products. 1000 is the rent. I don't know what amount to be allocated to this steel bottle and what amount of rent to be allocated to the plastic bottle. That is the problem. And for that, there is absorption costing. Okay, very much important. Absorption costing, you will going to study in this chapter, as well as there are further chapters. Okay, so absorption costing separately, there is a chapter as well. So understand it first here, otherwise you will not be able to understand the meaning of absorption costing. We will going to study later. Okay, so please understand. So here, absorption costing is a process that involves sharing overheads between different products. Its purpose is to ensure that the total cost of a production also reflect the indirect cost. Okay, so how to there, so there are three steps. So how to absorb the overhead into different product. So there are three steps. First one is allocate. First one, we will allocate. So you will have the amount, you will just have to allocate the amount to different category. Like direct material cost for bottle is there, direct material labor cost for this bottle is there. Okay, so allocation. Then after apportionment. Okay, apportionment means what? Indirect cost. Indirect cost is rent. So now, so I'm manufacturing both the products. Now rent is 1000. 60% area is occupied by the steel bottle factory, and 40% area is occupied by the plastic bottle factory. So I will allocate 1000 to area wise. 60% means 600 will be allocated to steel bottle and 40% will be allocated to, okay, sorry, 60%, 600 rupees will be to steel bottle and 400 will be allocated to plastic bottle. So that is simple. So that is known as apportionment according to their occupied area, according to their uses. Okay. And next one is absorption. Absorption is a different thing where you will have to check that how much cost is involved, okay, per unit cost. Okay, so per unit cost we will absorb, okay, in that, and according to that overhead is the we can say that overhead is allocated to that particular product. Okay, absorption is different thing, we will going to understand it with a practical example. So there are three steps: allocation, apportionment, and absorption. Okay, so this is not an example. This is the category. So first of all, it is overhead allocation. So overhead allocation, a production overhead cost is allocated or charged to a cost center if the whole amount of the cost can be specifically related to a single cost center. Okay, so each cost where the steel bottle is being manufactured, that is known as first cost center. Where plastic bottle is manufacturing, it is known as second cost center. Okay, so according to the product, this is known as cost centers. Okay, so cost center is I believe clear. So overhead allocation, first of all, we will allocate all the costs related to different cost center. We will allocate like direct material for the steel is there, for plastic bottle is there, labor, direct expenses which are clearly given in the question, and you will be able to bifurcate all the expenses to different products because it will be clearly given in the question. After that, overhead absorption and reapportionment. If it is impossible to allocate whole cost of the production overhead item to a single cost center, then the cost must be shared out or apportioned to all the cost center that contribute to its cost fairly. So if it is not possible, it means that combined rent is there, combined electricity is there. Okay, so combined advertisement cost is there. So you will not be able to allocate them to a single product. Then you will have to apportion that. Okay, the overhead of service cost center cannot be specifically identified with any one cost center. So that must be apportioned between the production cost centers. Okay, so service cost center is a different thing. Service cost center provides service to the production centers. Suppose there is a maintenance department. Maintenance department do not produce anything, but they are providing services to the different production department. Suppose there is a machine for steel manufacturing, there's a machine for plastic bottle manufacturing. So if repair is to be done for steel bottle manufacturing, they will call maintenance department. If service is to be done for the machine which is used in the plastic bottle manufacturing, then they will also call maintenance department. So maintenance department is that who is providing services to the both the departments. Okay, that is service cost center. Now whatever the cost involved in maintenance cost, that also should be allocated between both the production center. That is why service cost center also service cost of service cost center also to be apportioned between production cost center. Okay, next one is overhead absorption. The final step in the absorption costing process to calculate a production overhead absorption rate. Okay, this is the rate at which overheads are absorbed into the cost of each unit. Okay, so rate you will have to calculate, and after that, according to rate, you will take the overheads into different cost centers. Now, next one is why calculate overhead absorption? Yeah, so obviously it is necessary. If you will not calculate overhead absorption, then you will not be able to divide your overhead between different cost center. And if you will not be able to divide, then you will not be able to calculate the total cost. And without calculating total cost, you cannot calculate the actual selling price for the particular product. So sale for the selling price and for the calculation of profitability, you divide overhead between different cost centers. And inventory valuation. Inventory. Your in the inventory valuation, you add purchase cost, you add labor cost, you add all the expenses cost. Then after finished product cost involve all the expenses. And if you don't have the information of overhead, then you won't be able to calculate the cost of each product, and your inventory valuation will get wrong. Okay, so that is why overhead absorption is important. Coming to the next one. So there are different types of cost centers. So there is production cost centers and there is service cost center. In the production cost center, you will find assembly, mixing, painting, packaging, aging, molding. Okay, so different cost center. Uh, Suppose and according to that, service cost center is also there, like logistics and warehouse services, security, staff and canteen, other human resources services, maintenance, cleaning. Okay, so service cost centers are also there. So different cost centers are there. One thing you need to remember, that there is cost for service cost center, but all the cost of the service cost center is divided among different production cost centers. Okay, we will going to calculate how to divide cost of service cost center between production cost center in the later slides. Okay. Next one is whole cost and common cost. So whole cost items are overhead attributable to a single cost centers. Therefore, they are allocated to a single cost center. Okay. So this is very simple. There is overhead cost which is incurred and which is only for the one product. So we will directly allocate that to a particular product. So it is very much simple. So it is also written as, for example, at t-shirt company, the salary of the warehouse manager is a whole cost item as it relates only to the warehouse cost center. Okay. So t-shirt manager salary for the t-shirt company, then it will directly attributable to the that cost center. After that, common cost. Okay. Common costs need to be shared among different cost centers. Okay. So different cost center like electricity or power of the whole factory side is the common cost. Okay. Because it is for all the products. Okay. So it includes the warehouse, assembly center, cleaning department, purchasing office, etc. An apportionment base must be selected to determine how much of a typical cost is to be charged to a cost center. For example, kilowatt hours might be the basis. Okay, so basis is also important for allocating the cost. So for rent, area is important. For electricity, kilowatt hours are important. Okay, for repairs, type of machine is important. Okay, so there are different bases of apportionment. Apportionment principle. Okay, that is important. Apportionment, the second stage in absorption costing. Okay, first is allocation. Allocation means you have been given the cost for a particular product directly, so you can directly allocate them. After that, apportionment for the indirect cost. Okay, overheads. So apportionment, the second stage in absorption costing, is sharing common overheads between cost centers. Examples of common cost: building, lighting, shared by all cost centers in the building. Okay, so building, lighting, all the cost center also share rent, insurance, utilities in the building. So there are two parts for the apportionment stage. First, apportion all common costs across each production and service cost center. Okay, so suppose there are different cost centers like production cost center and main service cost center. Okay, and so what I will do here, suppose this is a factory. In this factory, there is production cost center A and production cost center B. Okay, so two production cost center, and there are also two service cost center. One is P and second is Q. Okay. So there are two service cost center is also there. Now, what will happen? Suppose the rent for the entire, okay. So for the entire factory, rent cost or electricity cost or water cost, whatever you may like, suppose it is 800 rupees. Okay. So now 800 rupees is for the entire cost. Suppose rent according to area, you will allocate 800 between A, B, P and Q. So what you will do? You will allocate to A that your amount is 300 according to your area. That is your rent. According to B, your amount is also 300. Okay. Then for P, your amount is 100. Then for Q, you will also say your amount is 100. So now you have allocate amount to different centers. So they are, this is production cost center 1, this is production cost center 2, okay, and this is service cost center 1, and this is service cost center 2, okay. So you have allocated all the expenses to A, B, P and Q. First of all, 800 is divided. Now, what will happen? This is important to know. Okay, this is very much important. You have allocated 100 to P and Q. Now, in the second part, this 100 of P and 100 of Q will also be divided between A and B. Okay, same, this 100 of Q will also be divided between A and B. And then after, you will have your total cost. Okay, so this is important. So I'm repeating it again. First, there's a factory. In this factory, there are four centers A, B, P, and Q. A and B are production cost center, PC1, PC2. P and Q are service cost center 1 and service cost center 2. Suppose one is canteen, second one is maintenance department. Now, for the entire factory, rent is 800. Now, this 800 is divided between all the production cost centers and service centers. So, for A, it is 300, for B, it is 300, for P, it is 100, and for Q, it is 100. First of all, 800 is divided. After that, this 100 of P and this 100 of Q will also be a portion between A and B. So 100 is divided between A and B and 100 is divided between A and B. So suppose 200, okay, 100 is the cost for A and 100 is the cost for B. It is divided. Now the total cost for A will be 400. That is totally different, and total cost of B, it is 400. Okay. I'm just giving an example. That is why both the amount are equal, but it can be different amount for both the production centers. Now, this is known as total cost of the production cost centers. Okay, this has to be calculated. Okay, now next one, basis of apportion. So just give me a minute and you also read this. I'm just coming in a minute. Okay. So this we have studied. Okay. Now, coming to the basis of apportionment. As I've told you that suppose there is a rent which is divided between production centers and service cost centers. But what was the basis of apportionment? So there are different bases of apportionment. So first one is suppose there is depreciation of machinery. So if we are charging any kind of depreciation, then we will use the carrying amount of machinery held by each cost center to apportion the cost of machinery depreciation. Suppose there is single machine and which is used by different products. Now you will have to check how much time is spent for a particular product. Okay, so according to that, depreciation will be provided to a particular product. Then after rent is there. So if I talk about rent, so rental rates, then it will be divided by the floor area of individual cost center. Okay, so rent will be divided according to the individual cost area. Next, so next one is heat and light. So heat and light again use the floor area of individual cost center. Okay, so these are the different centers. Okay, which needs to be checked. So for heat and light, floor area, for rental rates, floor area, for depreciation, carrying amount means the R or which is used. Okay. And after that, if power is there, then cost of power is a portion based on kilowatt hours. If insurance or machinery is there, then use the carrying amount of machinery held by each cost center. Okay. So suppose there is different machinery held by each department, then the amount of machinery will be considered as the carrying amount. Okay. They are talking about suppose combined depreciation is there and you will have to allocate the combined depreciation between different cost centers. Then you will have to take the machine used by each department. Suppose A machine used by P department, B machine is used by Q department. So the amount of A and amount of B of the machine will be the basis of apportionment. Okay. So this is how we can check that. Okay. So these are the basis of apportionment. Okay. Now coming to the next one. Okay. Calculating apportionment. So steps for calculating apportionment is identify cost center, whole cost and common cost, allocate whole cost to cost centers, select the appropriate base for common cost, apportion common cost on the proportion of the apportionment base used by the cost center. Very simple. First of all, we will identify the cost centers, that production cost center, okay, or there is purchase center, sales center. So there can be different cost centers. So we will have to identify. Then after we will identify what is whole cost for particular cost centers. So we will directly allocate them. Then after that common cost for the entire cost centers. Okay. So we will identify them. Whole cost we have distributed. Now common cost. We will select the appropriate base. So depreciation is there, then machine amount or hours used by the machines, है ना? Okay. And after that, if power is there, then kilowatt hours will be the appropriate base, and according to that base we will proportionate that amount between cost centers. Okay. So it is very much simple. So now we have an example. So an organization has two production cost centers, A and B. It also has two service cost centers, maintenance and warehouse. Okay. So two production cost centers and two service centers. Indirect expenses that need to be apportioned are as follows. So indirect expenses are rental rates 1 lakh, power 40,000. Details relating to the floor area and power uses to the four cost centers details are as below. Floor area is there, power uses are there. So for rental rates we will use floor area, and for power we will use power uses. Okay. So we will have to apportion the indirect expenses in the cost center. For that we will use Excel. So I'm just copying and pasting this uh, to in the Excel. Just give me a minute. Okay. So this is our example. Okay. So I have just copied and pasted it here. Now we are going to uh, solve this example. For you will have to just understand now what to do in that. So we have four cost centers. Okay. So we have four cost centers. First one is A, B, and maintenance, and next one is warehouse. Okay. So we have four cost centers. Now, in all the four cost centers, we just have to allocate our expenses. So, first expense, which is given as rent, that is costing to 1 lakh. Now, we will have to divide it according to the floor area. Okay. So, I will also here I will write down basis of apportionment. Okay, basis of apportionment. Okay, this is total amount. This is expenses. Okay. So basis of apportionment will be floor area. Now, for A, what amount should be? 1 lakh will be the, okay. First of all, what I will do, I will take the total of all the floor area. Okay, total is already given here. Total is already given here. So what I will do here, for A, my amount will be 1 lakh divided by total, that is 2000, multiply by 1000. So it will be 50,000. In the same way, I will calculate here equals to 1 lakh first one equals to 1 lakh divided by 2000 multiply by 600, 30,000. And for maintenance and warehouse, I will use the same formula. 1 lakh divided by 2000 multiplied by 200 and 1 lakh divided by 2000 multiplied by 200. And I have all the amount divided into production cost centers and service cost center. The same thing I will do with power. Total amount which is given as 40,000. Basis of a portion will be power uses. Okay. Now I have given the percentage. So I will directly use 40,000 multiply by 60% and press enter. 2400, and this is for all the department. I will drag it down. So it will automatically use the percentage. So 40,000 divided 24,000, 8,000, 4,000 and 4,000. After that, just I will calculate the total cost, which will be equals to sum of both the amount. 74,000, I will drag it down. Okay, and I will calculate the total cost of all the cost center. So this is how I can easily calculate my cost. What I did, I just I just apportioned my common expenditure between all the cost centers. Okay, my common expenditures were 1 lakh and 40,000, which I divided between all the cost center. So this is how you can easily calculate your total cost. Okay, it is so what we have understood, we have discussed the apportionment. Okay, first apportionment, but you will need to take care that what basis of apportionment you have taken for your uh, expense. Okay, if I had taken power uses for rent and floor area for power, first the apportionment could be done, apportionment can be done, but it will be considered as wrong. So you will have to check what you have taken for basis of apportionment. So this is how we can easily calculate our total cost, or we can easily apportion our overhead. Please go through that. If you have any problem, just let me know. Okay. So any problem, any doubt? Okay, then this is the end from my side. After that, in the next part, we will going to study reapportionment. Okay, so we will going to study reapportionment in the next part. So what we will do in the reapportionment? So as we have divided the amount between A, B, maintenance and warehouse department, in the next one we will going to divide our warehouse expenditure and maintenance department expenditure between production cost center. That is known as reapportionment. Okay, that we will going to study in next class. Okay, so that's it from my side. Thank you so much. Thank you.